All in Sports Network. We love sports.
Is Tuesday, May 13th, right here on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson. This is presented to you by Rogue Sports Network, and this is All in Horns. Today's episode, a little bit of a different episode. We're typically doing reaction videos to games being played, whether that be a big-time baseball game being played or a big basketball game in an SEC tournament or March Madness tournament or every single college football game on Saturday. We had a reaction episode too, but this is a little bit different of a reaction. This is going to be a reaction video to the Steve Sarkisian Pate State sit-down interview. If you have not watched it, pause this video, go watch that video. It's about a 45-minute one-on-one discussion with Steve Sarkisian, and it's all about college football and where he is as a head coach, where he is as a recruiter, and just where the Texas Longhorn program is right now. And it's a great sit-down interview with Josh Pate, who Jake and I admire and are big fans of because he is not one of the best. He is the best solo college football personalities and right now just in the sport right now. So it's 24/7 365 college football on his channel. So if you're getting in the summer slumps of it and you're just missing college football, turn it on to the Pate State channel, and he'll fix that for you for a little bit anyway. So we're going to react to that interview, and a lot of takeaways to take away from it, Jake. Just where Steve Sarkisian is, not only as a head coach, but also as a man, is pretty impressive considering where he was, I don't know, 6 years ago even. It feels as though even though he's going into what, year 5, year 6 for Texas? Year 6. No, year 5. Year 5 for Texas. Year 5. He's going into year 5 for Texas, yeah. But man, time has flown by. And it's incredible to see the progression of where this program was when he took over and where it is now. And, you know, one of my favorite things, one of my biggest takeaways from it, Jake, was he said very early on, he loves that grind of rebuilding a program and where Texas was to building them now. And he's like, it's kind of, you know, that feeling of the rebuild isn't there anymore, because now we have a standard, we have an expectation, we have this mindset now of we're competing for national championships. We're not just trying to get to the playoffs. We're not just trying to win a conference championship. Those are goals, obviously, but that's not the final goal. That's not what we're satisfied with. And now it's almost disappointing when you lose a semifinal game. And he said he felt that for the first time losing to Ohio State, of this isn't fulfilling. This is a sucky feeling, and we're not where we want to be.
Yeah, and it's a perfect way of explaining the progression of the football program. You know, year 1 was obviously a disappointment, even with lower, you know, standards. I think a lot of us were not realizing just how bad the roster was until we actually saw the play on the field. And I think most people who don't overreact to things were realizing this is not coaching. This is a roster talent issue. And there were things as a coach you can do better always. And Sarkisian improves every year as a coach, as a play caller, and so on. But then year 2, you know, you're better. You go to a bowl game, you win 8 games. It feels like a step in the right direction, but then you go, okay, this is where we kind of been with all the other coaches, where get that year where it's like, okay, this step in the right direction, a term I've said too many times in the last decade. And then obviously they take that big step the next year with Sarkisian. Even though you lose to a Washington team you felt was beatable, I don't think Texas would have had I didn't really feel like Texas had much of a chance of winning the title that year, to be completely honest. So I still felt pretty satisfied. And then the Ohio State loss, even though you knew how good Ohio State was playing, when you consider the actual game that was played on the field,
how close you were. I mean,
how close they were. It stung a lot.
Because Texas goes into Notre Dame, they beat Notre Dame. I don't care what anybody says.
And that's what stings. It's like the Washington game hurt because you're like, wow, they could have played for a national title if they just, you know, didn't fumble the ball. Defense, or maybe just Michael Penix has a realistic game. Not, that wasn't even realistic.
You know,
Some of those throws he was
he was
making.
playing on freshman mode on college football.
And, but you also could look at that and you can say is they probably don't have much of a chance of beating Michigan that year. And some people may disagree with that, but that's how I felt. And that's how a lot of the kind of Texas writers felt, that, they were just playing to try to make the national title, not probably win it.
Right.
But this year it was like that Ohio State game was the national championship game almost. I mean, that's what it felt like, because I don't think Notre Dame was they were way too one-dimensional to beat Texas or Ohio State. And you came so close, but just came up short. And so now I'm excited to see how he responds as a coach. Obviously, he responded, with recruiting and transfer, and he did respond in many ways already. But I'm excited to see how they respond on the field, because I'm sure there's been talk. Even though you have a different roster, different team, there's obviously a lot of carryover, but you still have a lot of new guys, especially this year with how many guys, went to the NFL. A lot of new guys coming in. But I'm sure there's still a lot of talk about that Ohio State game from last year when you consider Ohio State is the first team on the schedule.
Right. And Jake, he talks a lot about where the GPA was and where the culture was and the switching of that as, again, from year one to now going into year 5, has an entire recruiting class under his belt. And those guys have come and gone other than graduates and whatnot. But he talks about where this team was on an educational level and just what they were held up to as a standard as being part of the football program, and that standard had slowly diminished and gotten lower and lower. And he was kind of raising that bar, and now it's back to where he wants it to be in terms of taking accountability, not just for what you do on the football field, but what you do off the field as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think he said the GPA was at like 2.2 or something really low.
Yeah.
Whenever he came in, and now I think it's like 3 point in the low 3s, or really close to a 3.0 GPA. When you consider how many players are on the team, that's pretty dang good.
And the University of Texas is no slouch of an educational program. Like, I mean, they've got some pretty decent academics at UT. So, I mean, it probably takes a little bit more.
And it feels like more and more we're seeing a lot of players who aren't just getting a basic degree. I mean, we see some of these guys are going to Macomb's Business School, which is one of the best business schools in the country, who are not just taking the easy degree out and relying on making the NFL or relying on the prestige they build in college.
Can't you hear that in interviews and stuff? Like guys like Michael Taff and Andrew Makuba. And when you get guys that are speaking to the media, you can tell how much
Matthew Golden,
just how much more prepared they seem whenever the media comes and talks to them,
and how they talk about Texas. They without being asked about it, they talk about their love for Sarkisian. They talk about their love for the University of Texas. And I know we're in an NIL era and everyone wants to talk about how much Texas players are getting paid. Well, most of them are taking discounts to what they could get if they went out into the market. They take team-friendly deals, if you will, because Texas wouldn't be able to afford to keep a Wingo, Colin Simmons, all these guys who are getting offered, well over what they're making at Texas if they enter.
You don't think those guys tried to get poached from other teams in the SEC?
Like, I know they did, because I read the boards from I'm not talking the fans on the board. I'm talking the actual people in the know who are posting about it and being like, yeah, like Simmons got signed to a significant NIL deal. It was still not near what he was being offered to go into the portal. I don't know what teams were offering, but you can figure it's some of the top programs in the country that are doing that.
Take a guess. Take any guess.
Yeah, and A&M and Ohio State, and Texas is probably doing that to players also who are out there.
Alabama, Oklahoma, Georgia. Those guys would love to have a Colin Simmons on their team.
Yeah, or a Wingo. And so, there is a love for the program at Texas. And I truly do feel that based off the interviews with the players when they've left the university, based off how they talk during the season, they all seem prepared for the media, prepared for the questions, and really highly educated as well. And it shows the true culture shift, because I liked how he brought up the GPA as one of the first things they talked about in the conversation. Now he talked about how the culture starts, at that. It starts in the classroom. It starts off the field, having less off the field issues. You're never going to have zero off the field issues, but they've had far less than they were having. And it starts with all that, and then it builds to the football field. Because if you're not taking care of things off the football field's not going to work itself out.
Yeah.
And that just really stood out to me. It stood out to me already, but him bringing that up and talking about it confirmed kind of what we already thought and what we kind of knew we were seeing.
Yeah. And some really good quotes that he has, Jake. Hard work works, when he's talking about, and this world of constantly transferring out and having to work your way up to the top of the depth chart. And I think that goes to show at the running back position that we've seen over the last 5 years, whether that be Bijan with Jonathan Brooks behind him, or whether that be, Roschon Johnson and, again, Jonathan Brooks or Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner. They've all kind of had to sit and wait, but hard work works. And it definitely shows within certain position groups of guys that have just kind of had to wait their turn. We're going to see it at the quarterback position now for the first time. Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. It's the first time we've kind of see a quarterback kind of turnover under the Steve Sarkisian era, going from one quarterback to the next. Yeah, we had Casey Thompson. That doesn't really count.
It doesn't count.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I just think that's a fun way to, look at the defensive tackle position. Same thing. Whether you go from Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy to Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. And then now you look at the new defensive tackles that are in. It's just waiting your turn, waiting for your moment. And whenever you are ready, Steve Sarkisian has promised, essentially, you're going to be ready to go. Jahdae Barron, another perfect example.
Offensive line, Cole Hudson, Trevor Gooseby, even a Baker who, was a 5-star, comes in knowing he's not going to play, commits, even though he knows he's not going to play that first year. He got some snaps, Neto Umeozulu, or however you say it. I still can't say it right. Neto, who's waited his turn, and now he's probably going to be the starting left guard. The offensive line has had such little transfers out when you consider the fact that there's been a lot of 4- and 5-star guys waiting their turn, or a Trevor Gooseby who they kind of knew was going to be the guy after Kelvin Banks left, and him waiting his turn and not just leaving and trusting the process. But it's easier to trust I will say this. It's easier to trust the process when the process is proven, and the process is proven at this point with guys that stay an extra year and then go pro and go from being a 5th round grade to a 1st round grade. Jahdae Barron, Tavondre Sweat, who should have been taken in the 1st round, and Alfred Collins, who greatly improved his draft stock. Vernon Broughton, so many guys that. Matthew Golden transferring in. That's not even someone who was at Texas to begin with, but transfers in, and his draft stock goes through the roof.
Well, Jake,
it's proven from the transfer portal and from the development within the program when you commit and wait your turn.
Do you think Matthew Golden even gets drafted out of Houston, maybe 6th, 7th round?
He gets drafted, but probably in that 5th to 7th area.
Yeah.
Because he was good at Houston. And I assume he would have had a big last year. Probably would have been enough to get drafted, but he would have never been close to a day 1 or 2 pick.
No.
And he was without a doubt going to be a day 1 pick. Everyone knew he would go in the 1st. It was just a matter of when and where.
Yeah. But Jake, one of my other favorite quotes that he has is the worst word in sports is potential. That really jumped out to me. The worst word in sports is potential. Why? Because you haven't done it yet. You haven't proven that you are capable of your quote unquote potential. And we all look at potential as one of the cool words. Oh, this guy's got so much potential. You've got to take him, especially like NFL draft. Like, well, look at the potential of this player. Look at this, look at that. Look at all the measurables that he has. Yeah, but what has he done on the field? Has he proven any of that potential on the field? And that answer a lot of the times is no. And so he likes the word proven, or guys like that. And so I thought that was an interesting point of view from Steve.
Yeah. And that was right after he was talking about entitlement. which was another quote I really liked that he said right before this, which was, we are entitled to nothing. Entitlement is one of the scariest things in college football right now. And that's something that NIL has raised a lot of, is entitlement.
And that's something that comes from his transparency about his alcohol addiction and the mistakes that he's made in his past, that he's very open to talking about with his players and his recruits and the moms and the dads that of the players who he is trying to bring in. Of, look, this can all be taken away from you very quickly. I've experienced it myself. I was lucky enough to get a second chance. I'm not going to falter the second chance, but that entitlement of a lot of players from high school to college is a downfall to a lot of these players that we've seen within the NIL and transfer portal era.
Yeah, his openness about his past issues probably helps a lot with grounding some of these players as far as the off the field stuff goes. And they may get in a little trouble where something doesn't go public, and then Sarkisian has a talk with them and it flips a light bulb on for him, and maybe saves them from making a bigger mistake down the road. And then also, this was also kind of wrapped up with him talking about blanking. He was talking about his honest conversations with players at the end of the year, at the end of spring, and with just talking about, where you are going to be, on the depth chart, what
Right.
you need to do to improve
Your strengths and weaknesses of a player. Yeah.
And just having honest, open conversations. And then if the player wants to talk about the transfer portal, they'll have that discussion. And Sarkisian will say, whether or not he's like, yeah, maybe you should, enter, because like you're probably not going to be a starter here. Or sometimes a player will end up transferring, and even though Sarkisian may disagree with it, they'll still have that conversation. And so it's really cool to see the insights of kind of hearing the things that we see reported, and then seeing that kind of confirmed by Steve Sarkisian in this interview.
Yeah. Obviously a big topic of conversation before this happened was Quinn Ewers going into the draft, where he was probably potentially going to go before the draft. And maybe it was a, second, third round pick. A lot of quarterbacks went ahead of him. And then obviously, goes in the 7th round. And then there's the narrative that you and I have discussed of there's a certain crowd out there who is always talking about college football has changed so much that it's all just a bunch of free agency. It's a bunch of guys who just are chasing the bag. They're just in it for the money. They're not in it for the love of the game anymore. And then Quinn Ewers decides to enter the draft and pursue a lifelong dream of his, a dream that he has wanted to pursue because he loves playing football and something that he loves to do. And it's just a goal that he was ready to take that next step. And now that same group of people are like, well, man, you could have stayed in college football for another year and gotten paid 3 times as much as what you're going to get paid in the NFL now that you're a 7th round pick. Steve Sarkisian talked on that. He spoke on that. And he actually quoted Josh Pate in an earlier Josh Pate episode. And he said, look, I kind of got it from you a little bit, but I completely agreed with everything you said. And it was, look, you can't have it both ways. You can't have that double standard of a player who wants to pursue his dream at the NFL level, or the college football player that is chasing a bag just for the money. And not for the love of the game anymore. And so you can't have it both ways. And I just he put in a good perspective of he supports Quinn, he's there for Quinn, and he thought Quinn made the right decision.
Yeah, and Quinn kind of getting a perfect fit too in the NFL with Mike McDaniel. Even though he went in the 7th round, I think it was better him going in the 7th round than going in the 3rd round to a Cleveland or something. Where he would have had no chance. Now he actually has a chance in the NFL.
Then he would have competed with Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders.
Just draft all the quarterbacks.
All quarterbacks.
But like if he got drafted where Dylan Gabriel went, instead of Dylan Gabriel getting drafted there, that would have been worse for him than going in the 7th round, but going to Miami. And so, but yeah, I did like how he touched on that and acknowledged kind of the hypocrisy around it, because you would think Quinn Ewers would be celebrated for wanting to preserve his Texas legacy. by not going to another school just to get a bag. And he was done with college. He didn't want to be in college anymore. He wanted to go pro. He has a lot of money from college. Money's probably not much of an issue. And like we talked about before, he can always come back to Texas after if it doesn't work out in the pros.
He also had $1 million deal his senior year in high school that he went.
Well, he was. I actually think he made closer to 2 or just over 2 million that year.
And he went to Ohio State instead of his senior year in high school. And so technically he was in college for 4 years. I mean, it is what it is, you know. He was done with college football, and he didn't want to go to another school and be this transfer quarterback guy who stays in Dylan Gabriel type career, who's in college football for 8 seasons, or Tyler Shuck, who I'm pretty sure was in the same recruiting class as Joe Burrow was. So it's like, guys, like what are we doing here? Do you want to spend 8-9 years in college football, or would you rather just take that next step and take the risk of look, I'm ready to go in the NFL right now? And I can applaud and appreciate Quinn Ewers for doing that, and he will always have a very special place at the University of Texas, no matter how his pro career goes.
Yeah, and he also just talked about with Quinn's legacy, like he was the one who came to Texas when they were 5-7 and trusted. I think he said he saw the, he said Quinn saw the forest through the trees as far as trusting what they were going to do to turn it around and committing to Texas rather than going somewhere else, because everyone was recruiting him and just kind of talking about, if Quinn doesn't come, maybe the next, 5 recruits don't come. Quinn was kind of the first domino that started the domino effect of turning around Texas football.
And if those 5 guys don't come, maybe the next 10 guys don't come. If the next 10 guys don't come, maybe the next 20 guys.
Maybe Sarkisian isn't here anymore.
Yeah.
I still think Sarkisian would turn the football program around, but I love that Sarkisian just acknowledged it and shows his love for Quinn and what he did for this program, because Quinn got, even from us at times, too much, flack thrown at him. But we were mostly Quinn defenders on this podcast just because of how much and we would criticize his play, but there were some fans who's just like every bad throw is be like, he needs to be benched.
Arch.
Oh yeah. And then when Arch has a bad throw, be like, well, maybe Trey Owens is the guy.
Maybe Trey Owens is the perfect.
That's just the life of being the Texas Longhorn quarterback, I guess.
Yeah, no, we'll be hearing Dia Bell here pretty soon. Don't worry. But Jake, one last thing before we put a bow on this show and this episode, which I think has been a fun discussion, and I'm just getting in the brain of Steve Sarkisian is awesome. Making a decision every 30 seconds. Make a decision every 30 seconds, Jake, and do that for 4 hours. And that's Sark's job on Saturday. And to be completely honest, that's not entirely true, because he also has to get to the field, get prepared, meet with donors, meet with boosters, meet with incoming recruits, meet with media people, meet with the team, get his assistants all on the same page. Like, it's a full day job on a Saturday for him to get ready for these games. But then when the game is actually going, every 30 seconds, he's calling a play. He's getting the right personnel out there. He's diagnosing what defenses are doing, making adjustments. And every 30 seconds, he's got to make a new decision. And I just that perspective on coaching really opened my eyes of like, damn, that's not an easy job to have.
Yeah, and you don't have it's not college football 25 where you have a play sheet in front of you that's showing all the routes and everything. Yeah. That's all just going on in his mind.
Right.
And he likened it to saying, when your wife asks you where you want to eat, it'd be like if your wife asks you where you want to eat every 30 seconds. And if the answer is, I don't know, that's a delay a game.
Yeah.
And just talking about the intensity that is being the play caller, but how much he loves doing that.
Well, he asked Josh Pate, he said, well, where do you want to go do you know where you want to go eat to dinner? He said, I don't know. He goes, that's a delay game.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so that discussion was fun, and it does just kind of show how much is on the plate of a head coach, and then how much is on the plate of a head coach when they're calling plays. That's why there hasn't been many head coaches who call the plays that have won national titles. But I think Josh Pate's Meemaw said it. Just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean it won't be done, or it can, or that it can't be done.
Yep.
And so I think Sarkisian will be one to do that. It's just a matter of when, not if.
No, I completely agree. Jake, anything else that stood out from that interview? But those were kind of my main takeaways.
Him talking about the sign of a healthy program is the assistant coaches getting opportunities. And just kind of being happy for his assistant coaches that have gotten opportunities in the NFL, that have gotten opportunities to be a coordinator, to be a head coach. And, because Texas had, I mean, when Tom Herman and Charlie Strong were here, there's a lot of turnover at the assistant coaching positions because they were getting fired.
And they
every
weren't getting
single
hired.
year.
They weren't getting hired and promoted at other places. Yeah,
They definitely weren't getting hired at an equal or higher position, especially at a big school. And now you have guys who are getting opportunities on Sundays, coming from being an assistant coach.
And what a great vision that you can sell an incoming assistant coach who you see a lot of. Oh, that was another thing he mentioned of yeah, you can kind of see down the hall one or two guys that you're like, yeah, they have the potential. They have it to be making it to, he's going to see him out as a head coach, or he might be coaching against them in the SEC as a head coach one day who's already on his staff. He's got one or two guys, but when you have a guy that comes in for an interview, or you're going out to interview a guy and you can say, yeah, here's my coaching tree. I've got so-and-so, 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 and 3 or 4 guys you can list off of either being head coaches somewhere in college football or position coaches at the NFL, or even, assistant coaches at the NFL level. We don't know really. He's still very young in his head coaching tree, but this tree is getting very vast. It's getting very long very quickly already.
Yeah, or Blake Gideon, who was a positions coach and now is the defensive coordinator at Georgia Tech, which is an up-and-coming power conference team that's been getting better every year.
A good program. I like the head coach there. I mean, they took Georgia to the 7 overtimes, 8 overtimes.
Yeah, and they have good recruiting right now, good NIL, really good head football coach, and so they're getting drastically better each year. And they chose Blake Gideon to come be their defensive coordinator from being a position coach at Texas. So
he started out as just like an assistant position coach. He started out bare bones, bottom of
he was there because he played at Texas and was
Correct.
the starter for 4 years. That's why he was there. But then he turned out to be a really, really good coach, and now he's getting a big time opportunity. Tashard Choice, who's gotten an opportunity elsewhere, and so you're just starting to see this.
He's under Dan Campbell at Detroit now as the running back.
Yeah. I mean, the roots of the an A&M guy and Dan Campbell, who was going for Texas guys, his best option to be the coach.
Crazy
over there. And so right now we're seeing the roots of a foundation starting to build for a coaching tree of Sarkisian. And I know some people won't be like, but you got to think about how it was when Nick Saban was at Alabama, as far as just the amount of coaches that would leave every year.
Yeah.
And when you're a really good head coach, sometimes that involves it. Not only, we've talked a lot about the scouting when you're recruiting players, being able to find those 3 stars that are going to be really good players, like a Trevor Gooseby, and kind of how Texas has done a really good job of targeting players that they want based off their film and not just based off what rivals.com says about them.
Right.
Well, something that's an underrated aspect of head coaches is being able to do a really good job of hiring, hiring your assistant coaches and refilling positions when you lose a really good guy like a Tashard Choice, or you lose a Bo Davis, Kenny Baker, who's really taken the ground running. Sarkisian's hiring process so far has looked really, really good. And I'm sure it's going to continue to be tested because there's going to be more assistant coaches getting opportunities after this year.
And getting your fingerprints across the country. I mean, I would have never been like, yeah, let's go get the West Virginia running back coach. He'll be a good replacement. How do you know what is going on at West Virginia, but just being fully aware of what is going around the entire country, and just having the awareness of what other programs are doing in the system that they run and how they're coached, and, the progression of those players from one year to the next. The things that Steve Sarkisian has to manage as the head coach is, there's a reason why his bank account looks the way it does. He's got a lot of different plates that he's juggling and balancing at the same time. And right now, I don't think he's really cracked any of them, to be completely honest.
No, I mean, the only thing left for him right now is,
Is a national championship.
is to win the big one.
Yep.
I mean, an SEC championship too. I mean, they haven't won that yet. But it's been 1 year. I don't think
You can't say you've won the regular season SEC championship. you did win the regular season SEC championship.
Yeah, but he's checked a lot of boxes through only 4 seasons, especially when you consider the first season was a wash. That was just a throwaway season, and season 2 was a very much so a building block season. So in the 2 seasons where he's had rosters capable of doing something, they have taken care of business. And now, there's maybe a little bit more uncertainty in certain areas of this roster next year, but I have no doubt they'll be right back in the fight of making the playoffs at a bare minimum.
How many years, Jake, did we say the same thing about Alabama and the quarterback situation, or Alabama at such and such position? It's just like, oh, well, they are losing TJ Yeldon, Derrick Henry, and Mark Ingram all in the same year. They're losing all 3 of these guys. Surely they don't have a running back coming in, and then boom, they've got another Heisman caliber guy coming in and to replace those guys. And so, it's all about who you're getting in. It's all about who you're developing on, lower on the depth chart from 2 or 3 recruiting classes left that have stayed with the program and are continuing to build and having that hard work pay off. And very similar to what we're seeing Steve Sarkisian build here at the University of Texas. And so that was a great interview. If you haven't watched it yet and you made it through our entire episode of hearing about it, hopefully we talked enough about it to where you're like, all right, I'm sold. Let's go watch this thing, because it's worth the view. It's worth your time. It's about 45 minutes. It's not going to take up all day. But it's a good conversation with Steve Sarkisian. So, all right, Jake, that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. We release these episodes Monday through Friday, dropping these episodes at noon each and every day. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We're almost to 700. We've been flirting with that 690 number for far too long. Let's get us over the hump before baseball season wraps up. And going into football season, hopefully we can get to about 1,000 is what the plan is. And so we will be bringing you episodes throughout the summer, the dog days, the heat of summer, whenever there is no sports going on and all you've got is MLB baseball at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. We'll be right here for you each and every day talking Longhorn sports. And so for Jake Jimerson, I'm Tanner Carlson. This is your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns right here on All in Horns. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.